Hey guys, this is Caleb with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we're going to be taking a close look at the Aputure Light Dome. Right now I'm being lit with an Alzo 3000 shooting through the Aputure Light Dome, and essentially what this is a giant round softbox for your lights. What's great about this particular one is first there's two stages of diffusion. There's a small diffuser in the back and then a obviously giant one up front. And the biggest feature is that it's big. This thing is massive. It's 24 inches deep, which is nice because the further you have diffusion from your light source, the softer your light is going to be. And the other thing is that it is really large laterally. We're talking 35 inches across. So what's great about that is you're going to get lots of light, but also a very large light source. If you look at my eyes, there should be a nice juicy eye light, which is great. And that really draws people to look at people's eyes when they're on camera, as opposed to just dark, soulless eyes with no light in them. So that's a lot of great features. Now what we're going to do is sit back, do some voiceover, and just watch me attempt to put this thing together. So main parts, we have the actual hood here, and it's nice that the rods are actually in place, so that's one less thing we have to deal with. There's also the speed ring, which is how the rods are going to attach, and 4 of those rods have red dots on them, which go in place where those other red dots are on the actual ring. One thing I found while putting this together that I was very happy with was that the tension is really good. It's nice and sturdy, but it's not so tight that you have to, really put your back into attaching the rods to the speed ring itself. So normally with this kind of softbox, I would just keep it assembled because it's too much of a hassle to disassemble. So unless I'm flying, I'll just throw the entire thing assembled into the back of a truck or car. And I really hate dealing with taking all those apart. But because this one is very easy to assemble, which surprised me, I was preparing for it to be very difficult, I can see myself taking this apart if I had to every once in a while. Now, as I was putting this together, I was beginning to really see how massive this light dome is. This thing is crazy huge, which is a good thing and a bad thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You can Velcro shut the rear of the dome, which makes everything nice and tidy, and also lets you access the inside. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to reach in from the front and do any maintenance there. Next, it's time to start with the diffusion. There's a small little diffusion disc that is going to be Velcroed on the inside. That's going to be the first layer of diffusion. And then obviously later we'll put on the main diffusion material, and that goes at the very front of the light. Now, like an idiot, I tried to do this by reaching into the light dome rather than removing the Velcro flaps on the back. So this is not the way to do it. Much easier way is to do it from the rear of the light. And that'll be a lot easier than the method you see me using here. So here you see that first layer of diffusion. Now it's time to go ahead and add the main diffusion material. And so here is the diffusion on the front. Now we have 2 layers of diffusion. Everything worked out perfectly, and this thing is just massive. I can't even get it in the shot. Really nice, large, round light source, which is going to be awesome for eye light and throw out a ton of diffused light. So now it's time to remove my old system and install the light dome onto my lights. Hopefully I'll be able to try the new Aperture COB Lightstorm lights, which is similar to what you see here. And the light you see here is the Alzo 3000. It's a great LED light. Not as good as the Aperture model. It's much larger, louder because of the fans. But I've been using 2 of these things for, I can't even remember how long, several years. And they've really been troopers. One of them has started to buzz a little bit, but still a great light. And now you see me taking apart the old diffusion system I had, which really isn't available anymore, but I really did like it, and I'll continue to use it on the road because of how easy it is to set up. You can see there's just those tubes and corner pieces, and then it's just elastic, so it packs down to almost nothing, and then has diffusion and some other modifiers you can attach to it. So great system. Westcott has something similar now if you're looking for something like that. So this light uses a bayonet mount, and it's the same mount that Aputure's Light Dome uses. So it's pretty common on a lot of lights, even all these newer LED lights. So it's going to work really well, and I'm really excited to have a single unit, if you will. So one light stand with a light and the Aputure Light Dome, and if I move things around, I just have to move that one stand instead of the stand and the modifier separates and all that kind of thing. But there's a catch with all this, and that is the size of this thing. I have a decent sized studio. It's not huge, but it's also not a cramped, tiny little room. But my ceilings are kind of low. So my ceilings, I think, are around 7.5 feet at most. So fitting this thing in here is kind of a bear. I can't really go too high with it. So that's kind of a bummer, and it's so big it's difficult to get close to me with the framing that you're seeing right now. So you can actually see if I put my hand right there, it's actually in the shot. My background's kind of dark, so it's kind of being hidden there. So I like to keep the light as close to me as possible. I think that wraps nicer and it's just all around a better look. But to have this framing, even with the lens I'm using, which is set to I think 100 millimeters right now, it's kind of difficult to get close. Right now, it's probably about 5-6 feet away from me, which is a little far. I'd prefer to have that closer. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a tight space and you want a wider shot, you're going to have a camera closer with a wider lens to really pull that off. And finally, let's do a quick before and after. So what you're seeing now is the Aputure Light Dome, and now I'm going to switch over to my previous setup, which was using a 4x4 square diffusion that was separated from the light setup. So it was a little harder to rig up, but there's the two, and then there's the two side by side, so you can see what those kind of look like. And I'm curious to see what they look like as well, and seeing how I can use this in the future, and if I need to modify some things here in the studio. And that pretty much does it for this review. If you want to see more, make sure you subscribe here to DSLR Video Shooter. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.